Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Peter. I am the last site assistant standing up in the low pass known to all, excuse me, all and sundry. Scurrilous rumours do the rounds, delusions of grandeur. So, let's have a wee chat about the man himself and why he would eventually build this mausoleum over here. So, Duke Alexander, born 1767, like most young aristocrats of the time, very well read, well educated, would travel extensively around Europe. Would, from a very early age, would start putting together his great art collection, which of course everybody knows about in the palace, his huge collection that was in there. His father Archibald became Ninth Duke in 1799 and basically wanted nothing to do with the palace up here. He was happy down in the estate, down in Lancashire, very successfully running his racehorses. So he basically said to Alexander, right son, see that palace in Scotland? Yes dad, it's yours, do what you want with it. Thanks dad. So up he comes as the Marquis, the eldest son, and he very much becomes the Englishman who comes to Scotland and goes native in a very, very big way. So, Lord Lieutenant of Lanarkshire, he's the MP for Lancashire, he is the British ambassador at the court of the Tsar in St. Petersburg from 1806. He's also an unashamed admirer of Napoleon Bonaparte, which you can imagine how well that went down at the time of the Napoleonic Wars, which is why him and the Tsar had a major fallout and he was asked to leave Russia. But again, he would travel extensively around Europe, buying these bits and pieces for his collection in the palace. In 1810, this is when they finally get him married off to Susan Euphemia Beckford. Hence the reason why there's so many places in Hamilton with the Beckford name attached to it. Beckford Street, Beckford House, Beckford Lodge, where I came into the world. The Beckfords were arguably the richest family in Britain at that time. Her father inherited his father's wealth when he was only 10 years old. His father, Sir William, very successful businessman, Lord Mayor of London, raised on the slave and tobacco trade, but we'll keep that quiet. William Beckford, when he was 5 years old, went to his dad. Dad, I'd like to learn to play the piano. All right, son, I'll get you a personal tutor in. That just happened to be the 8-year-old Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Hence then William Beckford would claim that actually he stole all my tunes. But it would mean that Susan Beckford was a very accomplished concert pianist and cellist who would give recitals in the palace across the way there, would invite the various composers of the day to perform in the palace. So the highest profile visitor to Hamilton, if you don't count 60 years and 4 months ago when the Rolling Stones caused a riot when they played the Chanton Hall Hotel, which meant then that beat music was banned in Hamilton for almost a decade after that, which is why David Bowie got knocked back in 1969, couldn't play in Hamilton. The great Friedrich Chopin stayed in the palace. It was a tour that basically killed him. As he said, my Scottish ladies will not leave me alone. We don't know if he actually played in the palace, but there's enough evidence to prove he did play in our assembly room in Portland House. Not the piano we've got there, but he did play the piano in the assembly room in Portland House. Alexander's life took the great change in 1819, that's when his father died. So, being the eldest son, being the Marquis, now he finally officially becomes 10th Duke of Hamilton. And this is where the story really gets going. The Duke of Hamilton was and still is the senior peer of all the Scottish dukes in the earldom. He didn't just have the keys to his own palace across the way there. The Duke of Hamilton still holds the keys to Holyrood Palace in Edinburgh. He still gets apartments at Holyrood Palace. And he still has his major royal duties to perform. The major one is, whoever is on the throne in Windsor, when they are visiting Scotland, they are under the care, attention, guardianship of the Duke of Hamilton. So, if you cast your mind back a couple of years when the Queen passed away and she lay in state in Edinburgh, it was the current Duke, Alexander, number 16, who laid the Scottish crown on her coffin, and his bodyguard, the Royal Company of Archers, he's the commander of, guarding her body and then playing a major part in the funeral procession in London itself. They were the lads in the lovely green uniforms with the big eagle feathers in their caps. The smartest looking boys down on that whole procession. In 1821, you had what is known as the 1 in 20 Daft Days of Edinburgh. It was the first visit to Scotland by the ruling monarch, King George IV, in nearly 200 years. It was arranged by Sir Walter Scott. This is when all the aristocracy suddenly rediscovers tartan and this whole romantic notion of what Scotland and Scottish history was all about. This was rediscovered. And our boy Duke Alexander, being the senior peer, he would be there by his king's side. The king had left. Our boy stood up and gave a wonderful, rambling, ad hoc speech about respect and liberalism, which went down like a lead balloon with his contemporaries. But it also meant he said, well, that's what he thinks of me. I'm going to show him what it means to be the Duke of Hamilton. So, off he goes on his grand building projects. So the first one was the palace itself. Now the palace, as I said, would have been over there where the palace sports grounds are now. It was the second incarnation of the palace he inherited, Duchess Anne's palace. So when you go up to the dog kennels, up to Châtellerault, and you see all the displays up there, the William Arnhem designs are, that's the palace he inherited, Duchess Anne's palace. Grand palace as it was. Wasn't big enough or good enough for our boy. So, money no expense, David Hamilton, his cousin, the great architect of the day, was commissioned to expand, extend, rebuild the palace. So what you have over there 10 years later is one of the largest, if not the largest, non-royal palace in Britain, if not Europe. All 150 rooms of it. One more window than Buckingham Palace. Yes. Other projects, well, the dog kennels weren't a good enough or big enough hunting lodge for him. Alexander builds Dungavel House, the big hunting lodge down past Straven on the Muirkirk Road, of course now notorious as the Asylum Seekers Deportation Centre. As I say, the riding school, half of our museum, that goes back to his time in Russia, in St. Petersburg. He did admire the Tsar's riding school. I need one of them when I'm Duke. Opened in 1837. As far as we know, not a single horse has actually set foot in the place. It's been used for everything but. Cadzo Bridge, various other bits and pieces going on, and then in 1840 we start work on the mausoleum itself. Now, where the five-a-side pitches are, across the way there, that is where you would have found the Collegiate Church. The Collegiate Church was Hamilton's original church, built with permission from the Pope in the 1500s, then after the Reformation changed sides, became the local parish church, remained that way until what we now know as the old parish church off Church Street was the brand new parish church. So when it opened for business in 1737, the old Collegiate Church was semi-demolished and left to rack and ruin. So you get to Duke Alexander, of his plans for his palace, for his gardens, all his landscaping he's doing down here. He's got a ruined church in the garden. Oh no, want rid of that. More important, what was still intact within the church was the burial aisle, where his ancestors were lying, where he was going when he passed away. And El Magnifico took one look at that and went, do you think you're going to put me in there? No. He was going to build a proper resting place as befitting the Duke of Hamilton. So it's not just a pure vanity project on his part. I mean, a lot of it is. This is him making a statement on behalf of himself and the family. But it's more to really show the importance of the family. And he had very set ideas about what he wanted. He wanted a Roman temple, which is why we've got a lot of the Pantheon with a bit of Hadrian's tomb thrown in for good measure of the ideas for this building. Duke Alexander actually did his own sketches of what he wanted and then gave them out to the architects. Right, which one of you can come up with what I'm looking for? We don't know if nepotism was at work, but guess what? This is his cousin's, David Hamilton's design. However, he died quite early in the project. A couple of other architects came and went until finally David Bryce of London Bryce Architects in Edinburgh, he comes in and sees the building through to its bitter end. Now, there is a lot of the mausoleum you've got to preface by saying, so, this story goes. Because there are so many stories and tales about this building. Each one of them has an element of truth to them. It's just over the last 160, 170 years of taking on arms and legs. One of them is, we're not actually quite sure how long it took to build this place. We've got some sources say it was finished in 1856, some say 1858. Burnham Bryce Architects went and found this squared up until 1860. So you're looking at nearly 20 years down here, this project. What we do know, this grand edifice, there's basically just two rooms. There is the crypt and there is the chapel. And the crypt was ready to take in boarders, as it were, in August of 1852. So with due pomp and ceremony, and he did like his ceremonies, as you'll find out, Duke Alexander saw the mortal remains of his ancestors in the lovely new oak coffins brought across from the Collegiate Church, relayed to rest within the walls of the crypt. Right lads, that's a good job, well done. Thank you, Your Grace. Right, I'm off down to London on a business trip. I shall see when I come back up the road. You can start tearing that monstrosity down. Right, Your Grace, we'll see when you come up. You see as it is now, where the hotel is, where his apartments would have been. Sitting up in bed, because he's footman. You might get me down that boot down. Yes, Your Grace. There you go, Your Grace. Oh, Your Grace. Your Grace. Your Grace. Yes, heart attack at the grand old age of 85. Very good age for the Victorian era. They brought his body back up from London. He lay in state in the palace, and on the first Friday of 1852, September 3rd, 3,500 people, suitably attired or as near as their circumstances would allow, as the press reports of the time would put it, passed by his body to pay the respects to him. And then the following day, he's brought over and he's laid to rest within his mausoleum. Now, this is Duke Alexander's mausoleum. You think he's slumming it with the family downstairs? Oh no, no, no. He's got the upstairs all to himself. So they lay him to rest in his great casket, more of which later. Thing is, the building's not finished. The floor still has to be laid. The dome still has to be finished. So they lay him to rest in his great casket, and then build a temporary brick shroud across his casket, and then finish the building around him, which must have been great fun for the workmen. Don't drop your hammer on the jute, boys. Hey, bump. Right, I'm going to start throwing some numbers at you now. The building stands 120 feet tall, and, so the story goes, is 120 feet down. Seemingly there were 8 pillars sunk into the ground, and then they put the foundations on top of them. The walls at the base of the crypt are 15 feet thick. The walls at the base of the chapel are 5 feet thick. But it's the biggest and best Lego set you have ever seen. So just like the one we've got on display in the museum, yes, this is built the same way. There is no cement or mortar holding this building together. All this sandstone, all quarried within a 12-mile radius, the blocks are all keyed into each other. So it's the weight of the building that's actually holding it together. So, without giving too much away, yes, the old girl has moved over the years, but it's been that flexibility that she's had. That's why she's been able to survive the stresses and the strains. If she'd been properly cemented together, she would have gone boof, like a big Easter egg. Excuse me, like the April Fool joke that the Hamilton Advertiser tried to play about 20 odd years ago, sort of thing. And, as I've explained to you when we arrived, this is the front of the building. People think the other side's the front door. No, this is the front door. And before COVID, I would have been staying facing east towards Jerusalem. Now, COVID, and I better watch if you are filming me, if somebody catches me saying this, COVID was a great time in the museum, doing great research. We were, just having the museum all to ourselves for 2 months. It was fantastic, nobody to worry us. And myself and Alec, who used to work in the museum, and used to do the tours with me, and was looking at the mausoleum and we're going, is it really facing east? Is it really facing Jerusalem? Right, Google Maps. Let's get Google Maps out. Let's see. So, yes, the mausoleum is facing east-ish. Aye. But Jerusalem's actually way down that way. So you start drawing lines. What is due east of Hamilton? Well, 1,500 miles due east of Hamilton is Moscow. So, when Putin does go do lally, you know where it's coming from. I've had some Ukrainian refugees on the tour this year. I've said that to them, and you just see the beauty with their faces going, oh, I went, aye, sort of thing, you know. But then, you know how you can look at something for years and then something so obvious just appears? We're looking at Google Maps. Google Maps is because there's a line north, south, east, west. The mausoleum's not straight. Now, what we mean by that, she's not sitting due north, south, east, west. She's at a wee jaunty angle. Oh, there's something going on here. So, start drawing lines. We drew a line on Google Maps from between the 2 lines. Made sure we kept our angle nice and straight. Fired that line out. It's about 35 miles you travel. You end up at the front door of Holyrood Palace. Who's got the keys to Holyrood Palace? Who's got the apartments at Holyrood Palace? Duke of Hamilton. Oh, right. Let's try the back door, the chapel door. It's about another 10 miles you add on to that, give or take. You end up at Brodick Castle on the island of Arran. Who owned 3/4 of the island of Arran? Whose castle? Where is that? Where does the Douglas side of the Douglas Hamilton family come from? Arran. South side. It's 650 miles you're travelling to the Nouvelle-Aquitaine province of France, to the municipal city of Châtellerault, whose French title is that, sitting where the collegiate church was beside the palace. And we always wondered, why did it get moved to this seemingly random spot in the park? Well, there's nothing random about this spot. Now, you have to take it with a wee pinch of salt. If you draw the line from Brodick to Holyrood, the line actually runs about a mile north of us, around the top of the Strathfine Loch. But when you consider in the 1840s, they didn't have Google Maps, they didn't have satellites to go by. They're only about 2 degrees out. So it's amazing how accurate they actually got it for that time.
What about north?
100 miles north, Loch Ness, just because it does. If it was Alistair Crowley's house, we were just packing up in the museum and never coming back, sort of thing, you know. So, this is the front of the building. Are you up all ready for a wee bit of walking now? Right, come on now. So, this is the front of the building, with the 3 gates and the 5 carvings. Now the carvings you see here, as well as carvings you'll see inside the chapel, all the work of one man, a Musselburgh sculptor by the name of Alexander Handyside Ritchie. We're not quite sure how much he was paid for his work, but, so the story goes, so impressed with the Duke with his work, therefore so well paid he was by the Duke, he was seemingly never in need of work again. But we think they're looking at about 7 years worth of work doing all the carvings. The lions are keeping a constant guard, constant vigil on the building, hence one awake and one sleeping. If the legend has it, one day that lazy old soul up there is going to finally wake up and let him get some sleep. If you would like to formally introduce yourselves, that's Mosey and that's Liam up there. Each lion is carved out of a single block of sandstone. It took a team of 15 Clydesdale horses to pull each block into place. Our faces, our rogues gallery, from left to right, we have life, we have death, and we have immortality. So life for the folk and the flowers in his hair. Note the worry lines on his forehead. There's also a clock face underneath his chin with the hour hand pointing up to 12. That's a clock set at 12 noon for man in the prime of his life. Death, on the other hand, is a sleep that never wakes. That's why he's got his finger over his mouth, asking for silence. We do get the odd person asking, has he got tomatoes in his hair? They're not, of course, they're the poppies, they're the death flower that he's got in his hair. And in all immortality, over there at the right, you can see above his forehead, there's a snake coiled around his forehead, biting its own tail. That's an old Egyptian symbol for reincarnation and the eternal life cycle. Meanwhile, in among the flowers in his hair, you can still make out the body of the butterfly. Now, we can't blame T in the park for this, but somebody came down and popped the wings off the butterfly that's in there. We've got them in storage, but there's still the body of the butterfly is still in among the flowers in his hair. That's an old Greek symbol for eternal life. So you can see all this symbolism he's trying to bring into his building. All his classical studies, his Greek, his biblical, his Egyptian. You'll find the very big Egyptian thing when we go upstairs. If we were here in official business, if a Hamilton was being laid to rest within the walls of the crypt, we as the guests, as the mourners, would have entered in through the life gate and made our way inside. The casket would have been carried in through the death gate. When all was said and done, we would have been, and I'll just repeat that, would have been coming out the immortality gate. But as I say in every single tour, don't panic, this is the only gate that gets open these days, the death one, centre one. Only had one old boy had a heart attack in the last 40 odd years, we're doing fine. Before we go in, of course, there's various stories and tales. Let's see if I can pick on somebody today. This is the good bit. Have we got any cat owners in the house today? Or are you just kidding on? Right, usually we get somebody who still puts their hand up and they go, yes! Right, when cats are relaxed and they're sleeping, they're all relaxed, of course, their claws are retracted back into their paws. Yes, a few wee knowing nods here, there we go. Right, yes, claws are out. Such was the shame and embarrassment felt by Handyside Ritchie at making such a basic error, he promptly went away and committed suicide. Load of rubbish. Absolutely rubbish. Absolute rubbish. First mention of these gentlemen won't be the last. Watch what you read on Masonic sources. For the gentle of the lodge do like to spear off on strange tangents. Sorry, I'm originally for that, Paul. I've got my get to a jail card for that. No, Handyside Ritchie carried on working for another 10 years before he passed away. But when he died, his estate was worth a mere £6, 10 shillings and sixpence. So he must have had a grand time with the Duke's money. You can't take it with you, as they say. Have a look at the faces. More to the point, have a look at the wear rate on them. I mean, look how well worn life is. I mean, he's getting a new nose, among other things. Death, all the mortality, still in excellent condition. Now, whether that's accident design or there's other forces at work going on down here, the official reason we get from therefore the south side of the building is going to go here quicker than the north side of the building. That's the official storyline that we get, and we just go, aye, sure, We'll leave it at that, whatever a wee tale you'd like. And then the last one, of course, is the Duke's down here of his entourage. Suddenly breaks off. You know what, lads? What your grace? See that man there? I have an awful feeling I'm going to meet him very soon. Walk away, your grace, your favouring. I know, lads, I'll see you in the morning. And he died that night. No. That's another one of the great Masonic tales. As I said, he died at his apartment in London, 12 Portman Square. So unless he knew in 1852 how to get from here down to London in just a couple of hours, you know, that's it. When you start looking into Duke Alexander, his interest and everything he would be investigating, and you just think, Duke Alexander, Time Lord, you wouldn't put it past him actually. We tried to do an April Fool's story out and run when we used to have the big jet engine on display at the front door of the museum. That was actually the grand turbination device from the UFO that crashed in the low parks in the 1840s. This is why the mausoleum looks this way, because it's based on the UFO that crashed in that. Duke Alexander knew exactly what all this was and did all these detailed drawings of it. See the many people just walked past it and went, all right, and just walked on. And we're like, anyway, I'm going to get my gate open. So come on in. We'll get you in, and we'll get these spread out in here. Right, so this is the entrance into the crypt. Before I take you into the crypt itself, you can see we have two sort of chambers in the entrance here of the mausoleum. The upstairs, the chapel, was fully intended to be the working part of the building for posting ceremonies and services. So it had its own central heating system built into it. When I take you upstairs, you will see the 6 bronze grates in the floor, the big H in the middle in case you've forgotten who's now shut in. These green lights always come on when I come in like that. This is a bit of a worry sort of thing, you know. The warm air would rise up and heat the upstairs room. There's a whole series of hot air ducts built into the building, and through that archway there, and down the left hand side, you will find a fireplace. That is the furnace room in there. Now if you know the area down here in the park, you'll know that 100 yards that way, through the trees, you'll find the old cottage. That's the old keeper's cottage, where the caretaker of the mausoleum would have lived. Old Mrs. Kerr was the last one in here. She moved out mid-1960s. Yes. Our daughter was actually in the museum, I don't know, about 8-9 years ago. Sorry. I wish I'd actually got her contact details. I talked away to her, and then she's out the door and went, and they're away, some of that time sort of thing, you know. So that's been empty for nigh on 60 years now, that house, through there. So if there was anything going on in the mausoleum, caretaker would get the call, come over, prep the building, get the candles lit in there, get the fire going, warm air rises up, everybody's roasty toasty upstairs. Right, pop quiz. Where's the chimney to get rid of the smoke? For a chimney stuck on the side of your mausoleum, very least, a bit of an eyesore. Might also raise a few awkward questions. And usually when we've got the school groups down here and I say to them, it would have been the coolest thing ever, but no, the smoke would not come out in all sort of the lions, but that just would have been brilliant if it was. No. If you know the cottage then you'll know it's got a very, 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 very big chimney. In fact, a lot of people say it's got for a small cottage, it's got an industrial sized chimney. Because it's got two chimneys, just that one sits inside the other. Those air vents over there, there's two of them. And they're saying that the air circulation, the chimney doesn't indeed start above the fireplace, but instead of going up the way, no, it goes that away, 100 yards, under 6 pence per tonne, and depending what source you read, between 6 pence and 2 and 6 back in every ton of coal was the cut for the family. For obvious reasons, there's a 150-yard exclusion zone around the two buildings. So around the mausoleum and around the palace, there is an exclusion zone that they are not allowed to quarry under. But the rest of the park is fair game. Duke William gets all the paperwork all sorted by 1895. All the paperwork's done, all ready to be signed off. Signs it off. To celebrate, gets on his yacht that he berthed in Ipswich so he could pop over to France for the racing. Goes for a wee cruise of the Mediterranean. Stops off in Algiers. Drops down dead at 50. And he leaves two big problems behind. One, the debts. Secondly, there's no son and heir. So I have to get the family tree out. Right, who's next? Who's next in line? Well, it's not him. Nah, it's not him, he's dead. It's not, and this is where Alfred comes into the story. The Pocket Hercules, as he was known. The naval officer who stayed down at Dungavel House. He was known as the Pocket Hercules. He'd just retired from the Navy. He was injured in a diving accident. He actually got a case of the veins, which eventually we can't get this door open any more than what it is. We're not going to put anything down the hinges in case we damage it. So just watch as I get in here. I don't want you getting tripped up and blaming the Duke and trying to sue him. Okay? As I say, folks, just watch as you're coming in there. The real edge. You see it better on the way out. It's just as you're going in. Now at this point I'd have been saying hopefully we find who's going to find the escape tunnel, but they actually sorted it when they were doing the filming in here so it didn't make the noise. So unfortunately I've lost my escape tunnel. So just watch yourself as you get into the ledge. There it's there. Yeah. That was when Amazon found them here. That's one from the 30 years. And I said this is when the reason why we're not sure the two of them, we should have had the other models for them because that's a good film. So this was the big loose flagstone, unfortunately. They've straightened it up now, or else I can't do my go your grace! And usually get somebody running at the door. This is our crypt. At its high point, you would have found 17 members of the family residing down in here. So, all the ancestors brought across to the Collegiate Church that Friday, that day in 1852, and then added to over the years. So the one that you maybe would have found in here, Duke Alexander had his mother laid to rest, and the Duchess Susan Bedford was laid to rest in here. You see his brother Archibald, the two Williams, his son and his grandson, laid to rest in here. Those two, last in, first out. When the decision was made to remove the bodies from the mausoleum, in the spring of 1921, they were the first two to be removed. You'll now find them over at Broddick Castle, in the churchyard over there. And then in October of 1921, everybody else down here, plus his nibs up the stairs, removed and taken up to the main cemetery. The main cemetery, and you'll find them in the Brandon plot, in the main cemetery from the town. And then for 50 years, this part of the building was out of bounds to the public. Which is why, I'm trying to cover this so I don't dabble in. I hope you can admire the fine council workmanship in the ceiling. They meant well at the time, but if, like me, you live in sandstone buildings, you know sandstone breathes. It contracts and expands through the year. Concrete cement does not. So in the long term, this is something that will have to be rectified. But this is the only way to get the building safe and ready for people coming in 1971. But you can see the dome in the ceiling. You'll feel that on the floor upstairs. Not as pronounced, but you will feel yourself going up and down. The big centre pillar holding everything up. When you stand in the centre circle upstairs, you're standing directly on top of this pillar. These are the original candle holders. Then, the big doors there and the lattice pattern gates are all the originals from the Karen Ironworks up in Falkirk. Made from the same iron as Wellington's cannons that defeated Napoleon. And when we do our Halloween ghost tour down here, our Halloween tour, yes, we do like the candles down here. And if you think it's atmospheric as it is down here, you should see what this place is like when it's all candle lit. It's quite impressive. It's not a thing. This is a game where we're trying to get the Frankenstein film and we're hoping for down here. And as far as we're aware, it has never been cleaned in here. So you've hopefully seen the stonework as it was. Very little air or water pollution would get in here, especially when the doors when the doors are closed over. And it wouldn't get damp and musty. Every one of the four corner alcoves, which you see if I show that with the light shine on there, you'll see it there in the top right. There's a ventilation shaft. There's one in the corner of each of the four big alcoves. And they go all the way right up to the top of the building. The actual air intake is actually at the top cupola, at the top of the dome. So this would always be aired, it'd be dry, it wouldn't get damp, it wouldn't get musty. So the oak coffins just sat in these niches, but they wouldn't get damp, they wouldn't get musty, because this place was aired, it was dry, it was cold. Now, unfortunately, to preempt the question that usually gets thrown up at this time, when the bodies were removed, so went the records. So your guess is as good as anybody's about who was where in here. That means that it's like the mound over in the park. You can pick your own spot, nobody can contradict you. So, can you just come round this way? Because if you start spreading out, A, one, you will not hear me, and two, my head will be spinning around with Linda Blair and The Exorcist, and it's there. So, aye, don't worry, plenty of this. It's all that again, like a wee perch, you can just sit in there, I know. We all seen we started doing this, we saw it knock our chairs back in, but we'll get there. This is the chapel. This is Duke Alexander's room. This was supposed to be the working part of the building for hosting ceremonies and services. But as I'm now sure you've already noticed, we've got a slight acoustic problem in here. I mean, I'm not talking very loudly, but you can hear my voice booming around the room. So imagine trying to hold a service or a ceremony in here. Imagine 2, 3, 4 people trying to talk over each other. A couple of people singing in the corner. Imagine, here's what I get to play. Imagine, I go for you minister, I go to hellfire and no break. See, I missed doing that during lockdown. Is that like that? So it became a place of solace, of reflection. One group of gentlemen, though, would continue to use the building they have mentioned before, they shall be mentioned again. This actually is one of the first sort of multi-faith, multi-denominational buildings. Remember how I said about how Alexander married his son off to Princess Maria Barton? So when they stayed in the palace, there you go, Mill, here's the bronze. Let's see what you can do with them. Cast in sections, pinned together. Each door weighs 3/4 of a ton. But when the doors were in place, they were so beautifully balanced. Oh, we'll get to that, don't worry. They were so beautifully balanced. All you needed to do was just use your pinky to push them open. And again, if you wanted to close these doors when they were in place, just use your pinky. And of course, when these slammed shut, the wooden doors we have now, of course, they absorb the sound, they absorb the echo. These things, on the other hand, bronze, no, it's like putting 2 big Marshall amplifiers at the door there, sort of like, they would resonate. When the bronze doors were in place, that's when the mausoleum had its 30-second echo in here. It was in all the record books. The doors were taken down for the same reason the bodies were removed from the building. The building moving and shifting, there was a fear they were going to be damaged beyond repair. So that's why this is initially just a temporary measure. Bring them in here and then find somewhere for them. And then once they realise the building wasn't going to collapse, they have remained in here ever since. There is no chance that the doors would be rehung. This has happened within the last 15 minutes. This is what you would have seen coming up those stairs. The other side is just the impressions of the moulds and the lock mechanisms. How good is your Old Testament? Right. We have Joseph and the Corn Exchange in the top panel. In the middle panel we have the Ark of the Covenant, the lost tribe of Israel, showing the power of the Ark. There it is, the trumpets are blaring, it is the city of Jericho, and the walls are coming down. Back about April time, we had a wee primary school group over here, and it was only about a couple of nights after Raiders of the Lost Ark had been shown on BBC 4 or BBC 3, one of them. The first time this wee 8-year-old had seen that film, and then 2 days later he's seen this and he's going, "Is that?" Aye, and the other's going, "That's the Ark, that's the Ark." He couldn't believe it. It was real. Yes, it was real. His wee head was almost bouncing off the top of the door. He was just, his wee mind was absolutely blown. He just thought that was amazing. I'd just seen that film and now there it's there. And this is King Solomon in the court of the Queen of Sheba. Now, yes, that shiny hand. This, of course, is your natural bronze colour. We don't know who had the first rush of blood to the head, but somebody walking past the mausoleum way back when came up those stairs, bent down, shook his hand for good luck. What are you doing that for? Ah, it's for good luck. Must have worked. The Victorian lottery numbers must have come up that night. Then became tradition. Anybody walking past the mausoleum, come up the stairs, bend down, shake his hand. When the doors were removed and brought in here, and old Mrs. Kerr was still doing the tours, because this was open, this was the part that was still open to the public. So that's about 120, 130 years worth of the acid off of people's fingertips, polishing up his hand. So that's why that's your polished bronze, and this is your natural one. It's like Greyfriars Bobby's nose through in Edinburgh, when you see him and he's all polished up like that. The wee chap in the corner, story goes, if a young lady's desperate for a baby boy, she pats him on the head, and she has a son. Now, I did the last, before lockdown kicked in, it was the Saturday before that I actually did a tour, and there was a girl on the tour, and she went, "Aye, Peter, I was on your tour a couple of years ago, and you told me that story, and I patted him on the head, aye, within a year, baby boy." So, and then people go, "What, really?" Aye. So, that's always, so, that's it. If you haven't already worked it out, yes, where your warm air is coming up from the fireplace downstairs.
Tell me, does it work with grandchildren?
Well, we just remind you and all that, if you do shake his hand and you do get some winnings in the lottery and all that, the council will be after you look for a cut anyway, so...
Are we allowed to touch them?
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, good luck to me.
And then if you go up the slope and down the other side, and then everybody's favourite again with the kids when they're in here, it's their favourite, it's David and Goliath. So there's our David, felled the great giant as he's slinging these pebbles used to bring him down. There they are, chopping his head off, which again when the kids see that, that big knife he's got, man. There they are, taking his head back in triumph to Jerusalem. £1,500 that these doors cost in 1856. Yes, 4 years after Duke Alexander died, so he never actually saw his doors completed.
He was probably running about here looking in.
I was waiting for the tap on the shoulder and all that, I'm going to tell some of the tales about them.
And these two here, you didn't tell us about these ones.
These are just, again, these are the copies of the figures on the Givity doors, so they're just your sort of normal, sort of classical figures in among them. But there was Aileen who used to work at the museum. The year before COVID, she actually with the family went on holiday to Italy, stopped off in Rome, stopped off in Florence. She actually walked into the Pantheon. I went, oh, I've been here before. And she got to Florence and she saw the Givity doors. And she took one look at it, she got some great pictures for me, and she took one look and went, nah, that goes on. Right, speaking of, there he is, in his full El Magnificence. This is the Henry Raeburn painting. He humped and hawed so much before he actually parted money with it. He actually was 11 years before he actually parted with money for his painting museum. But that time Raeburn actually died. That went to the sale in 1919. What was it, 50,000 guineas it went for in 1919 or something like that. But definitely the family a few years ago, it cost us 60,000 pounds. So they didn't want that painting back. All there. People ask, is he still in here? No. This is the black marble plinth upon which sat the Egyptian sarcophagus our boy was laid to rest in. One of two that he had. His backup plan is the Panabas sarcophagus, the red one that's on display at the Kelvin Grove in Glasgow. That's the red one, this was the green one. Ancient Egypt was his great passion. And as you walked into the palace, swept through the main hall, swept down the black marble staircase, went through the next door, that took you into his grand Egyptian hall, where his two sarcophagi were on display. This one he acquired due to a wee deal going wrong with the British Museum in London. They were contacted with one of their agents in 1836, who said that there was a royal casket, Nefertiti's even, was up for sale in Paris. Should be bought on behalf of the nation, put on display in the British Museum. Absolutely. And then they suddenly went, wait a minute, Duke Alexander's in Paris. He just happened to be a trustee of the museum. You've seen Sir Doctor. Can we get a telegram or something? Can we get word to the Duke? He can go and see the sarcophagus and verify for us. The word got to Duke Alexander in Paris. What? Yep, absolutely. Went off and he saw a sarcophagus and sent word back to London. Lads, it's wonderful, it's brilliant, yes, buy it. So, if you're wondering in 1836 what £632, 8 shillings and 6 of taxpayers' money could buy you, I could get you one of these. The only thing is, when it arrived in London, they're going, what's that? What is it? What's that? Of course it's the wrong casket. Now, whether he was, or he knew exactly who it was up to all along, Your Grace, he held up his hand and said, "Root like lads, I'll take full responsibility. British Museum could be for the treachery. Everybody's happy. £10 delivery charge. That's in the palace." Now, the wee soul was long since gone from it, but he did decide what better casket for El Magnifico. And he did try it for size. Maybe he should have tried a wee bit better, but he did try it for size. When Duke Alexander's in London, one of his great friends down there is Dr. Thomas Pettigrew. Not only is Dr. Pettigrew one of the foremost surgeons and physicians of the day, he's also, like Duke Alexander, one of the foremost Egyptologists of the day. Well, if you went for dinner at Dr. Pettigrew's house, once you'd had your big meal in his dining room, right, your after dinner entertainment, right, clear the table, bring out a mummy and do an autopsy on it. Duke Alexander's there. This is brilliant, this is wonderful, yes. Dr. Pettigrew, yes, Your Grace. You can see how they've put them together, how they've embarked. Yes, yes, yes. Then you could do me. Well, I think I could, Your Grace. Right, you're doing me. So when Duke, when he died, yes, he was done like a proper pharaoh. So if you want the full gory details, yes, disemboweled, brain through the nose. I said that would be primary school group we had in. Then we started getting a conversation with brain bogies and all that sort of thing. the sort of subjects you get with 8-year-olds and all that, and they'll take it all seriously. All bound, tightly bound. We don't know how well bound he was, sort of thing, but the thing is, that casket's 6 feet long, custom made for a woman of 5 foot 2. 6 foot 2. Now, the hutch shrunk down a couple of inches, that's 85, that's a couple of inches. But, so the stonemasons hollowed it out as much as they could without destroying its integrity. There are 3 variations in how they got them in. Door number 1, maybe was so tightly bound that when they got him in, squeezed him in everywhere. I mean, that lid literally weighed a ton, he's not coming back out. Door number 2, before they get all bound, get the big hammer out, bang, bang, fold them up. He has quoted his famous last words, where allegedly, double me up, get him in that way. Door number 3, yes, with the gentleman of the lodge. Many of the other accounts will tell you that it's a case of chop, chop, legs go in first, then he goes in over the top. Family don't like that story. The main one they go by is his legs are either broken or his kneecaps at least dislocated so they could fold them up, get them all bound up that way and get him in there. But here he lay for 69 years until the decision is made to remove the bodies and take them up to the bend. So, if you go up to the Bent Cemetery, go in through the main gate, you'll hear Harry Lauder singing, like he does in the museum, he sings up there as well. Go to the main centre part, go to the left, go right down to the back, you will find the Brandon plot. You'll see it's all neatly curved on edge, that's where everybody from downstairs is. And then you see the big stone monolith, it's got the names, front and rear, telling you who's there. Underneath the big monolith is a concrete burial chamber into which was placed Duke Alexander in his sarcophagus. And make sure I get him round the right way. He's in the lap. So he's standing up. Or kneeling, or standing with stumps. One of the wee stories you want to go by, sort of thing, you know. Up in the bend. So you just got from the train station and basically go, you're about a wee mile walk from the train station. It's the main big cemetery in Hamilton. That's where you'll find them now. You can go up and say hello and say, I've been at your mausoleum. There was a plan when Strathclyde Park opened in 1975, there was an idea to actually zoom them back out and bring them back down and put them back in. Aye. But Galway black, his favourite material, you'd have seen it everywhere. His full name, Alexander of Hamilton, he's the Duke of Brandon, and he's the Duke of Châtellerault. So Châtellerault is his French title. In fact, when Alexander became Duke in 1819, he's actually in France. First thing he tries to do is take his place in the French Parliament. He was given very quick shift. No, go away, your grace. It does not work that way over here, sort of thing. Brandon, his English title, at the Act of Union between Scotland and England, what's the first thing they do down in the House of Lords? Ban the Scottish Lords from taking their place in the House of Lords. So what the other boys do, go around England, Wales, looking for available titles, old dead titles, and buying them. And our boy got the Brandon title, walk into the House of Lords. Thought, you keep me out, did you, boys? There, see? Galway black, you can see it in the floor. You can see we've got the porphyry, we've got the jasper, we've got the Peterhead granite quarried by the prisoners up at Peterhead prison. We've got stone from the Balkans, stone from Greece, stone from anywhere between 42 to 48 different types of stone and marble in this floor. We've just no idea where most of it came from. If I stand here in the centre circle, that's me standing directly on top of that pillar downstairs. Best place to get the echo, you can actually feel the voice bouncing off the floor back at you here. Centre of the sun, centre of the universe, with the compass points radiating around you. The black ring you're standing in, when you view it from this side, represents the pages of the Bible spread out before you. The outer ring between the diamond patterns, have you noticed something about it? It's an optical illusion. It's a staircase. Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's a staircase. That's Jacob's ladder, stairway to heaven. See, Led Zeppelin bang on before anybody else. Meanwhile, we have the wheels of life. That's the circular patterns you see in the alcoves. And then we get very serious for a minute. Yes, artist cracks everywhere for it. There are 3 green stones as you come in the door. There. Knock, identify, enter. Because this isn't just the finest private mausoleum you'll set foot into, it is the finest Masonic temple you will set foot into. Alexander was Grand Master Mason of Scotland, that's what his son William, and the Gentlemen of the Lodge still use it. This is still the working Masonic building, hence why it's also facing eastwards and all that. We haven't seen the lads since before COVID. If you go on any Masonic website, yes, be careful, you will find some mad stories, but you'll also find some amazing detail about how this building works. David Steele, who did the Masonic tours, he was a lovely old man. He would throw me wee tidbits every now and again with a wee lovely wee conspiratorial smile in his face. Aye, Peter, aye, see that. Tell you that, I never told you that, sort of him. And you find well. It means that, do you realise you have your foot in a coffin?
Which one, the left or the right?
This one. So the patterns you see, the rectangles with the diamonds in them, are coffins. So when the gentlemen of the lodge are here, your brother will be standing in each of them around the circle. It's why there's a lot of frieze in the building. And why there's various. So if you go onto various Masonic websites, yes, you will see how. There's just not a Masonic hall or temple anywhere in the world that's got a floor this ornate and this colourful. The headquarters of English Freemasonry, it's just all shades of sandstone there floor. The headquarters of Scottish Freemasonry, which just happens to be in Washington DC, is all shades of blue. It's just I'm not allowed in when the general, I am not in the craft. I just have to do the guard dog outside. I don't even dare have a peek through the keyhole, because I'm sure the Sergeant at Arms has a big pole to pull my out for doing it. We're nearly there, folks. I know as usual we're running late, but then again, Mary Ann knows I just trump her away when I'm down here. So, Handy St. Ritchie. Remember him with his lines and his faces? Once he's done, he comes in here, gets the rest of the carvings done. So, we have the Hamilton family coat of arms above the casket. We have the Beckett family coat of arms above the door. We have our little cherubs. Each one is an individual, so that no matter where you stand in this room, one of these wee guys is looking at you, keep an eye on you, just in case you're getting up to no good. Based on this, the all-holy God, last day praise God, glory in the highest, nothing without God, God my director, my refuge, my protector, my solace. With the alcoves here on the floor and the niches in the middle ring, nobody knows what was going in them. Alexander knew. He was just making this up as he went along. So whether there are going to be statues or frescoes or whatever in this building, who knows? It was all in his mind. So when he died, young William, his son, said, look, just get him in, get it finished, walk away. That's my inheritance getting spent. So the final bill we see in 1860 from Byrne and Bryson Architects is £28,500.